Only.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Up Only Television. It is with the gravest and sincerest condolences that I announce that Kobe, short for Cobius Minimus, this morning I learned that that means micropenis. He is not here. He has been lost in the high lands of northern Scotland. But the show must go on. Today, I will carry the torch. Welcome to Ledger Only.
Up only.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
Up only.
Hello and welcome to Up Only TV. I'm Ledger. Kobe's not here. I don't know what happened to him. My jacket is stuck in my body. This episode is brought to you by Blockfolio. Go to uponly.tv/Blockfolio. Check it out today. Make a trade. Let's bring our guests in. They have no idea what's going on right now. Hello, friends.
Hey.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Good. Surviving.
That is good. I gotta get untangled here. I'm living up to my reputation of bad television host.
I think that intro video higher budget.
I don't even have I don't have the comments on, but I'm sure it was very well received. You know, like the people will be very happy about it. Kobe's not here, but some fantastic people are. We are joined, Allison, my co-host of the day. Allison, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me. Sorry, I'm not as handsome as Kobe, not as charming, but I'll try to do my best.
Oh, you're ready to go. You're ready to go.
I'm ready.
We've got MyCrypto entrepreneur, founder, CEO, dominant Ethereum thought leader, Taylor. How's it going?
It is good. I am the thought leader of the Ethereum.
We are going to get your takes on EIP 1559. Can't miss those. And then you were a guest expert, I guess that's what you would call it, on Exit Scam, the podcast that goes over the saga of Quadriga's end, hosted by Aaron Lammer. Aaron, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Long time viewer, first time on. I am disappointed by no Kobe, but I think I've got the better co.
I am in fact a disappointment to most people relative to Kobe. Like if you just get Ledger, you know, it is a disappointment. So I had to bring the fire guests. So that's why Allison's here to co-host this with me. And we brought you two on because I think y'all know as much as anybody about what happened with Quadriga. Aaron, you've created an incredible podcast that's, what do you call these? Like, what's the genre of like quasi crime mystery?
True crime. It's
true crime.
True. Yeah, I mean, I think this story is like a lot less gory than most true crime. A lot of people have told me that they're like listening to it with their kids, which I find surprising. But I guess kids today need to know about Ponzi schemes.
Yeah, so we're going to learn about about Quadriga, we don't want to do like super spoilers, but I tried to pimp the show ahead of time and say, listen to Exit Scam, because you just came out with the last episode, right? The show is complete, barring news of the co-founder or the founder of Quadriga being alive or dead today, eh?
Yes. And I'll say that, you know, we can avoid spoilers, but like a person who Googles this story can find out most of the stuff about the story if they want to. So I don't think there's anything deeply hidden, more about sort of putting together all the parts in a way that made sense.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. And then Taylor, no audio, no feed. We have audio and feed, right? Chat says no audio. I'm going to ignore the chat until somebody screams at me.
Good call.
Yeah. Taylor, you came in maybe episode 4 or so as an expert talking about kind of the moving of funds with Quadriga, some skepticism about Quadriga's financial security. Why don't we actually start with you and say, like, what was the reputation of Quadriga prior to like when everybody outside of Canada learned about this through his reported death?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think that generally speaking in the crypto space, you have maybe like 3 groups of exchanges. You have like the Coinbases and the Geminis, where you have like the regulated and they really, I guess, capitalize on that reputation and playing by the rules, and they're careful with their listings, and that's their whole thing. And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, which are just these exchanges that you don't ever hear about until they like get hacked or go offline, and they list every coin under the sun, and it's terrible, and it's manipulative, and it's exploitative, and it's bad for the ecosystem. But I think that Quadriga actually kind of falls in the middle, where it didn't have like the worst reputation. It ended up being like the biggest exchange in Canada. I think that when we think of Canada, we also think that like nice, happy people, they wouldn't scam us. And I think that they maybe capitalized on that. Jerry specifically was like hanging out in the ecosystem with legitimate players who have been around forever. So it was a bit weird because definitely not an exchange that people were up in arms about. You know, definitely like there were posts about Quadriga. There were questions being asked. There were the standard slew of like, where are my coins? I can't withdraw. You know, but this is crypto. That's not abnormal.
Yeah. So Aaron, what got you interested in this? Did you know Quadriga existed until you heard of Gerald Cotton's death?
I did not. I had never heard of it. I don't pay much attention to Canada, I guess.
That's a shame. It's a wonderful place.
It seems weird that I would have never heard of the biggest Bitcoin exchange in Canada, but then again, like I'm not sure what the biggest Bitcoin exchange in England is right now. So I guess I'm an Amerocentric person. But I mean, the time that it was happening, I was hosting Coin Talk,
Shout
which
out
was like
Coin Talk, great podcast.
Yeah, shout out Ledger, the very first guest ever on Coin Talk. And I was pretty into all these cons and scams. Like I was following that whole world pretty closely. And this story just kind of like has it all. It has like interesting crypto elements. It has the possibility of a fake death. It has a lot of missing money. And a lot of it you can actually trace on the blockchain and forum posts. So it's not like one of these ones where it's like, we'll never know what happened. Like there's a pretty good paper trace of a lot of the mysteries in this story. So I think we're kind of on the dawn of this new detective era, which is like the blockchain detective era, where we're going to be able to like replay some of these crimes directly through like the code of how they happened. And that was how I first started talking to Taylor about the story. Was, I think actually really the first people who were pretty skeptical of the official story were people who had wallets that had interacted with Quadriga. So people who make wallets, people who make exchanges were like, wait, hold on. I have interacted with these Quadriga wallets and they do not lead to any cold storage, which is ironically something people could have realized before Gerald Cotton died. But there's no nonprofit that seeks to locate and size cold storage on exchanges right now. Maybe there should be. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's get the rest of the panel's story here in terms of awareness. Allison, you binged Exit Scam alongside me, I guess, over the past week or two.
Good.
Did you have any awareness of Quadriga or anything about this story prior to me asking you to co-host in lieu of Kobe being here?
Yeah, so I'd heard the story like very vaguely, just sort of there was this thing that happened. This guy might have died, he might have not died. Yada, yada, yada. Jokes on Twitter of people being like, time for me to pull my Quadriga, whatever.
Yeah.
But I hadn't actually like done a deep dive into the story. So I didn't really know anything other than something had happened and it was up in the air whether or not he had died. But it was so good. I literally watched it all in 24 hours. Like I couldn't put it down. So.
Awesome. Listen to it all. It's all audio only, right? Unless I missed the video version, which I would be stunned.
No, there's almost no video of Gerald, which is like another interesting thing of the story for like someone that age. Like left very little like paper trail on the internet, which is maybe something that someone who knew they were doing something illegal would not leave a bunch of stuff. There's like weird scammer stuff I've uncovered where a lot of like scammers you can see like in every photo go like this and like cover their face and actually try to like keep their face off of the internet database of faces. So some of these people, there's like not even like a single photo available of.
Taylor, your crypto queen cup is amazing. I love it.
Thank you. I love it.
Taylor, why in the world do people set up these exchanges and then scam people when there's so much money to be made just running a legitimate, largest in Canada crypto exchange?
That is an excellent question. I don't know, because if you are running an exchange somewhat successfully, you don't even have to be that successful, somewhat successfully, that's where the money is. You don't have to steal it. You just keep on running it.
You just take a bit of every trade. Like it's the best business ever.
It's and the other thing is that a lot of the exchanges that that'll like pop up and then exit scam do so within like a year, maybe 2 years tops. The fact that Quadriga is running for this long, it's definitely peculiar to say the least, right? Who runs a scam for however long it was, 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah, 5
It's
years.
a really long scam.
Wait, I have a counter question for Brian though.
Yeah.
The question of why not just run the exchange, isn't this a question of like why not just hold Bitcoin and Ethereum? Why this is like a brain disease that comes with crypto. It's the I got rich, but what if I gambled it all and tried to shoot the moon? I'm a billionaire. Like most people who blow up in crypto would have gotten rich if they had just bought crypto and held it. And yet we seem to like attract a certain personality type that always tries to shoot the moon. In fact, it's almost, you can almost see it happening like in real time as people start to achieve some success. They're like, well, what if I got a 100-fold success instead of a 3-fold success?
Yeah. That might be more of a question for Taylor than me. That you've run a business in crypto for a long time, and one of the things that I've seen from people is like, man, my business has been pretty good, but like if I took all the money I invested in the business and bought Bitcoin early with it, would have outperformed the profit from the business. I think maybe
yes.
well, maybe it was Eric Voorhees that talked about that one time, that like he put a lot of his own money into Shapeshift, and he's done well with Shapeshift, but like the amount of Bitcoin that he sold to invest in Shapeshift, if he would have held, he would have made even more. And I guess even for someone like yourself, like Eric, these kind of old school entrepreneurs in crypto, is it just that there's a more long-term awareness of like, Bitcoin doesn't have to moon for your business to be successful, right? And Bitcoin mooning was a variable.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination. So for Shapeshift and like for us, VC funded, you're not necessarily profitable. Like you're using the money that you raised in your seed round or your Series A or whatever it is, or in Eric's case, he did put his own money in. And so you're not necessarily profitable, or you're not always profitable. Like sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. I think that's one aspect. And then the other aspect, obviously, is like a lot of people like to get paid in fiat. There's a lot of laws as well. So if you really want to run a legitimate business and pay people in crypto, it kind of takes a lot of work. Very early on, we actually only paid people in crypto because we only had crypto, which was way easier than doing payroll, like real payroll and taxes and, you know, all of that. However, we did see a remarkable amount of turnover in 2018 from the people that I had hired early 2017 because I paid them in crypto.
Yeah, suddenly they weren't making near the money that they were anticipating.
Yeah, and they had this nest egg of like, well, wait, why am I working?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so you know, I think there's a lot of factors. That's the end of the conversation, right? There's so many factors. I think it points to what motivates people, right? I like what motivates me is not necessarily money. It's helping people. It's being engaged in this community and seeing all the stuff that goes right and all the stuff that goes wrong, and trying to I guess have an impact on that. I think Eric's probably motivated by that same sort of, like, Eric doesn't need to work anymore.
Right.
Why does he work? You know, and then also once you do have a team of people working for you, you do feel a certain amount of responsibility to keep the business running for their sake.
Yeah, for sure. What were you gonna say, Aaron?
Well, I was just saying, I mean, I think me and you talked about this, Brian, during the ICO era too, where it's like, it's hard to get people to do things when you can succeed without actually doing anything. In most American business, you have to actually do something. So it's a bizarre business environment where, like, the best strategy is actually to raise money and not do anything, if you're just talking about a pure risk and reward structure. And it's not even, I think, just the fact that, like, people are personally getting rich. It's also that there's so many businesses in crypto that have succeeded without doing anything that you start to wonder, I would think, if I was doing something, am I making a mistake here? Like, am I going to go down in flames by applying actual logic and rationality to building a product, when really the biggest success stories are pretty much. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, there was a period of time, probably like, you know, the heart of the bear, like 2019, right? Where I was just sitting there like, why didn't we do an ICO?
Yeah. So actually, why don't you back up to there? Okay. Cause, you know, MyCrypto is, a whole suite of tools, I guess, for interacting with the Ethereum blockchain. And do y'all support other blockchains as well, right? If they're EVM compatible?
Yeah, so any EVM chain, so Ethereum, now there's Binance Smart Chain, which is anything that's like forked the Ethereum core base, just inherently works with our product.
Right.
It's not necessarily that we chose to support them. Like, we didn't really do much work to support them, but that's a nice added benefit.
I'm not supporting chain, but we do support Smart Chain.
Yeah.
Yes. It makes me uncomfortable to talk about this.
That's okay.
But yeah, any of the EVM chains, Ethereum's our focus, 100%. And we've been doing this for, gosh, so the original back in the day product, which didn't even have a name, and then it turned into my Ether wallet, that was launched in August of 2015. So right when Ethereum launched, we put out the original tool, which was a no-name GitHub repo link that let you like generate a paper wallet, and that's basically all it did. It just had a button.
So
you just
yeah,
click the button, you got a paper wallet.
There wasn't like a UI or interacting with the desktop app and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we've come a long way since then, and yeah, we do have like a whole suite. We have, so there's MyCrypto, the website. There's MyCrypto, the desktop app, which is mostly like air gapped offline. People can use it. You can use it online, but that's, you know, that's, if you really want to be secure, the desktop app is the way to go. We have CryptoScamDB, which is a database, open source database that just like tracks addresses and URLs that are scams. That then feeds into like the MetaMask anti-phishing thing, where you get the red screen if you end up on like a fake Coinbase or a fake MyCrypto or whatever. What else do we have? We have all sorts of tools, and they're all just trying to make the space a little bit safer. That's the whole game.
And you're one of the people who are, I just noticed I never had a ledger for a long time. And
Yeah.
you're one of a small handful of wallets that seem like they're like pre-coordinated with whatever ledger is doing, which I don't totally understand sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if with Ledger, but with Trezor at least, we were actually the only interface that allowed you to use your Trezor with Ethereum for a long time. Ledger was also super early. Now you can use your Ledger and your Trezor with a lot of things, but that's why we're so deeply integrated with those hardware wallets. It's just like we've been doing it for, gosh, like 4 years now.
Can I ask you a question about that, Taylor? I came to like DeFi kind of late because Ledger was Brian the whole time was like telling me during DeFi summer, and I like completely ignored him at my own deep financial loss. But like the thing that kind of got me finally was using an Ethereum wallet as like a Web3 login. That was like the thing was like, whoa. This was not a part of the Ethereum experience that I had really. At what point did you start thinking about what you were doing more in terms of like an identity layer like that than like a pure wallet product? And how much does that like affect your product thinking about where
Allison,
my
how awesome is this? We don't have to do anything. We just sit here.
I know, this is so good.
Taylor.
That's nice.
All right. How do I say this? So it's been similar to the Quadriga whole thing, right? It's been like a seesaw because I, in 2015, was so excited about the potential of smart contracts and like smart contract wallets specifically and what they can enable. I actually imagined that like, 2016, 2017, everyone would be using a contract wallet and you would have so much additional safety. Obviously, the DAO happened, and then the parity multi-sig hack happened, and then the parity multi-sig hack number 2 happened. And so I ran away quickly. Like I was like, okay, maybe we'll get there one day, but definitely there's a lot of work to be done. So I've always thought about all of the potentials of like the user, their like device, like their computer and their phone, the multi-sig, the UI layer, how these things all interact, and then obviously with identity and reputation baked in as well. Like I've been thinking about that forever. I'm just waiting for smart contracts. I'm just waiting to gain confidence in smart contracts.
Oh wow,
Still waiting.
Still waiting. Yes.
Not that there's like billions of dollars running through them on a daily basis or anything. That terrifies me to think about.
That's why, I mean, that's the thing. I don't understand how people create these DeFi things because I see it and I'm just like, how do you have any confidence in it as a builder? And that's not your money, that's someone else's money. That's why we kind of take this safety first approach. And, we have the air gap desktop app layer, like that kind of stuff. It's definitely, I watched the space very carefully. I'm excited to get to a point where everything is, you get to a certain confidence level with the smart contracts, but right now we're not there yet.
So there's been a couple of times where there's either been a hack or a exit scam or a rug pull or whatever, and you've kind of like dissected what's happened and how it occurred. In the Quadriga example, a central controlling entity had custody and control of coins, fairly straightforward. What are some of the common things that people do that are really dumb that enable people to take all their money?
That's sort of the question that I'm trying to answer every time I dive into these, and especially from like a social sort of constructs layer. So with the rug pulls, it's it's kind of easy to say, well, they're scammers and they don't, they're greedy. They just want to steal people's money. But that doesn't necessarily answer the question, well, why did people put $1 billion in this obviously insecure smart contract? That's the question I'm always trying to answer, I guess.
Greed.
With Quadriga, the answer is actually, greed and like fear of missing out. They're very strong emotions, optimism, idealism. The builders, right? Legitimate builders who sat out with good intentions to build something and end up losing $1 billion. It's actually usually the same motivators, right? Like they are overly optimistic, overly idealistic, overly excited. They're a little bit of FOMO, not the same type of FOMO, but there's this opportunity right in front of them and they want to grab it. With Quadriga, it's a bit more interesting because it is a centralized entity, and there's this definite this is crypto. We're supposed to value things that are decentralized. We're supposed to be skeptical. We're supposed to ask questions. We don't leave our money on the exchange, not your keys, not your coins. How did this thing run for so long? How did no one see the red flags for so long? I don't know. Nobody looked. That's the answer. Nobody looked, right? The data was there on the blockchain. We could have seen that Quadriga we could have seen that Quadriga had no money in probably 2017, maybe even earlier.
Can I ask a technical question about sexes and how they treat? This was something that was sort of shocking to me, which is
I'm baffled about what's happening here, but I'm waiting for it.
Centralized exchanges sexes.
Oh.
Okay.
Can I ask a
That is not how I read.
Aaron, that is a different show. That's not up only.
Oh, you're talking about gender.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're going to do gender now. Let's go.
Yeah.
But this is something that came up a lot when I was talking to people who lost all their money. And it's honestly like I'm like playing myself here because this is something I was wrong about until I learned about it, which is I think a lot of people who trade on centralized exchanges, sexes, see that they have an account, right? And they see, oh, I have 5 Ether in my account. And they think, oh, there's an Ethereum wallet that the centralized exchange is managing for me with 5 Ethereum in it. What's actually happening is all of the exchange's Ether is just in one big mush pot. And there's a CMS that says 5 of those are yours and 10 of those are yours. And so in the case of Quadriga, this has like 2 kind of terrible effects. One, a lot of people just thought like, because I can see it in the website, it's there, which was wrong. That's kind of the simple level. The crazier level is that like Gerald Cotton's worst act, at least in terms of losing the most money, was basically taking up this enormous long Ether, short Bitcoin position with all the mush in the mush pot, all the coins that everyone had on the exchange. And this, as far as I understand it, is like a fairly common way that centralized exchanges become fractional reserves, is basically the owners try to profit by taking a position with all the coins. So my question for Taylor is, why can't sexes actually just give everyone, like Ethereum wallets are free. Why not issue everyone when they make an account, actually give them one? What is the technical hurdle that we have to just keep a mush pot if we want to have an exchange?
Yes, that is the question. So Kraken, for a while, I don't know if they still have this feature, but they used to, because they were so involved in the Mt. Gox thing back in the day. They used to have a way that you could actually click a button and like audit your funds in terms of like their entire reserve. Why don't they do that anymore? Why don't they promote that anymore? Why don't I know if they do that anymore? Is because people actually don't care. So that's half of it, right? If users aren't demanding that these exchanges are transparent with the funds, if they're not demanding that they can see this information on the blockchain, then the exchange has no reason to dedicate resources to that. And like in Kraken's case, I would imagine that like every single day they have 1,000 shills like emailing them being like, list this coin, list this shitcoin, list that shitcoin. And Jesse's probably sitting there going like, but guys, I really want to do this super cold audit thing so that we can prove the reserves and have, like a triple layer of accounting all over the place and prove it. And other people are probably going like, yeah, we know, Jesse, but like, we need to figure out if we can list the shitcoins.
They make a lot of money off people trading shitcoins though, right? Like Kraken,
that's
especially.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, like they are, like, I feel like reputationally or personality wise, they are the exchange of Bitcoin maximalists, but even they make a large percentage of their revenue from people buying and selling shitcoins. And
you see this with Coinbase now too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just this week, Brian publicly stood up and was like, we are going to list every coin that we legally can. And I'm sitting there going like, oh my gosh, like how far we've come.
Yeah. What happened to the digital asset listing framework or whatever they did a couple of years ago, you know?
Well, it goes out the window when you put numbers by it, and when you have a team of people that are business minded, and you have a team of employees to feed, and the bear market's coming, and you know, I get it, but it's definitely I think in this industry it's very easy to lose sight of your value.
Allison,
very, very easy.
Allison, have you ever been scammed in crypto?
I have not.
Yeah.
No. Never. I've avoided all crypto rug pulls. I have not avoided all, you know, other rug pulls, but in crypto, I've steered clear. So,
All right.
What about Solana? Wait, so like FTX runs on Solana. Does that mean that like you have a like Solana address for each FTX customer?
No. They don't run. The exchange doesn't run on Solana. The Serum platform, the Serum DEX runs on Solana.
I had mistakenly believed they do say things that would lead you to believe that FTX itself is like Solana based in some way.
Maybe in the future they want to be, but no, that's not what they do now. But like the FTX is kind of they're the profit maximalists, I guess. Like they know like people want to trade things, so they offer things to trade, right? And they don't, you know, there's nothing else about it. It's for traders and people that want to speculate. They will list lumber if that's what people want to trade. They did. And guess what? It was the absolute top of lumber. So we can blame Sam on lumber prices going down 60%, just like they do when you know, when coins go down because they get listed on Coinbase or something.
Well, I'm doing a new deck, so I appreciate anyone who's backing lumber right now.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you take this one. I shouldn't talk on lumber.
So. I'm building a house, except for like Ethereum and lumber charts look exactly the same. So I'm getting way poorer in Ethereum prices versus the lumber price going down.
Did you consider like hedging lumber and like cost averaging?
I mean, I guess I should, but the price of finished lumber has not come down yet. So
that's what I was going to ask. So is there an arbitrage, or like, I'm not a trader, is there an opportunity right now to play lumber futures against actual real lumber, right? You want to short real lumber right now, right?
Yeah, if you could structure it that way, there's a trade there because lumber futures have outpaced the lumber that's like being sold. So
What's a lumber DAO? And we'll the lumber market.
We need, we need to figure out how to corner the lumber market. I think it actually did what it did because someone did corner the lumber market. Like, that was pretty intense. I don't know if y'all watched.
I don't know. That chart. I thought the Bitcoin 2017 bubble chart was like the most beautiful bubble, and lumber futures has taken the cake.
Oh yeah. It's magnificent.
It's perfect. It's a perfect bubble.
So I was talking to someone who might be building for us this morning, and we talked about hedging lumber. Like, he's the builder, and we talked about hedging lumber. And his strategy was basically to, if I remember right, long lumber futures in case it goes back up, but quote a lower price. So if it goes down, he'll still be protected. Like, he can essentially protect the price that he offers us if it goes back up. But if it goes down, he'll be able to source the lumber for cheaper. So I think that's how you could play it. But you don't really like make a lot of money because you don't necessarily want to like long the current lumber chart, you know. But if you're building, you can provide more certainty to your customer.
Right. And that's actually what fascinates me most about now that crypto does have this, you have the options and the futures and the shorting and the longing. Like, I mean, that's where things get interesting because you can put yourself in really, even with the volatile market, you can still hedge yourself into a pretty certain position, or at least one with a lot more certainty than we've had historically.
Yeah.
But it does create a lot of opportunity for screwing things up.
Thank you, chat, for listening to Lumber Only.
I I know. Should we talk about Quadriga? No.
I have one other weird degen brain question related to lumber, which is, do y'all ever, when you're planning a trip internationally, think about like the price of the currency you're converting to? Like, I remember I was going to a wedding in Italy that Joe Weisenthal was also going to, and the euro like crashed, and I was like, should we just, I was like 4 months away, I was like, should we like load up on euros now to spend on this trip? And he was like, this is a terrible idea, like do that. But I was like, anytime I see like an imbalance, I'm like, if I'm going to take a trip to Europe sometime in the next couple of years, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick up a few thousand euros. Is that just really stupid thinking?
I don't think so. I mean, like, people outside the U.S. have to do currency management all the time, right? Like, Canadian dollar got wrecked versus the U.S. dollar for a really long time. It's probably doing better now. I haven't looked, but with oil prices up, it's pretty attached to oil. So I don't think it's that unreasonable for like your income, but I don't know if it's worth it for, taking a trip, what the difference is going to be.
Break trip my senior year of college to Canada, it was like the bottom of the Canadian dollar, and it was up like $1.40 beers. Yeah. It was pretty great.
Aaron, I think you just wanted to bring up Joe Weisenthal as a flex because you were on the Bloomberg podcast, and you're like, me and my buddy Joe, I was a yield farming expert. So give the people a little bit more background. You were prepared for finding all these people and experts like Taylor to talk about Quadriga and the scam there. You've been in crypto for a while. You've been a degenerate gambler alongside myself since 2017. How did you get from, knowing nothing about crypto maybe in 2017 or so to being a yield farming expert on Joe Weisenthal's podcast?
I said very clearly at the beginning that I was not and that most ideas were plagiarized either from Twitter or from the Telegram that I'm in with Brian. So there's not a lot of expertise there, but I've always really wanted to do this stuff pretty like experientially. That's always been like what interested me in crypto, is like actually doing stuff. I had early auger markets. I had the will a Donald Trump P tape come out auger on, which like caught a little bit of news attention, and we had a little momentum going there for a while. There was really no liquidity on those auger markets. I don't know, it was like very hyped up, but like they had like 2 bets that people actually did any betting on. But it's really fun now because you can actually do things with Ethereum now. And so the thing that I've focused the most on in my own interest in crypto is a lot of the DeFi Web3 stuff, just because it's like not sitting and talking about Austrian school economics. It's like things you can do on a computer that actually happen, and there's actual user interactions. I mean, I have a background in product design and user experience design, so it's more fun to me to do the things that are kind of a little bit more like apps, I guess, and a little bit like more overlapping with other things that are happening on the internet. I've been like, I went through the whole NFT world. That was interesting to me, but like, I think the most interesting thing to me are these like experiences that can start sort of bleeding into like other non-crypto areas and those opportunities. I'm not really a big video game person, but I am bullish metaverse, despite actually like not wanting to spend any time there if possible. I'm all about other.
You don't want to spend time in the metaverse?
Not really. Like, I don't even like really get addicted to video games. I wasn't like allowed to play video games as a kid. I grew up in like a non-video game environment, so I'm just so bad at video games. I don't want the whole world to turn into a video game if possible.
I think Allison spends 80% of her time in the metaverse already. What's it like there?
Yeah, what's going on?
I don't know what I do, to be honest. I don't even know how I got here. I wake up every morning and I have like a little existential panic, being like, what is happening? Sometimes I'm so sleep deprived that I think I am in the metaverse, but
Wait,
who knows?
Why are you sleep deprived?
I write a lot, right? So I write like a newsletter, and then I also write writing my dissertation.
Shill your non-dissertation content co-host, Allison.
Oh yeah, so I write a newsletter called Inflated Expectations with Blockworks, and just started a podcast. And then I also I work with the quantitative research team at Tantra Labs. So busy schedule, but.
So therefore, you're sleep deprived.
And also, it's funny you mentioned. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Spend all your free time.
Yeah, because Aaron mentioned the Austrian economics thing. I go to a school that is primarily composed of Austrian economists, but I'm not one of them. So
you're just surrounded by them.
Just like
I'm surrounded by them. Yeah.
A Trojan horse.
Yeah, I'm like their token conventional economist. So.
I have a question for Allison. So,
God.
Let's get into crypto. What was your the first period of your life? Like, how long ago was it that you were started spending a lot of your time on crypto?
Yeah, so I actually worked in development economics for 3 years, and during a period of that, I was working at a think tank and a national security based think tank. And I was the Venezuela specialist. So I was going through everything that happened from 2014 up until 2018, 2019. And around 2018, I think it's when it was, I was studying a lot of stuff related to, it's a little weird, but related to gold in Turkey and gold being funneled out of Venezuela. I was also looking at some stuff related to terrorism and terror routes through Venezuela and most of Latin America coming up on the southern border. And so somewhere in the mix of all of that, I got handed a really small project related to cryptocurrency in Venezuela and sort of Russia's intervention in the country in creating the digital petro, which didn't really go anywhere for them. My research didn't really go anywhere for that either, but that was my first little introduction into it. And then at Mason, I was studying mostly industrial organization and experimental economics. So doing a lot with development, growth, and then also just some really random repugnant market sort of stuff. But
sounds
I was also
the resume for a potential CIA agent to me.
Right. Yeah. Oh God. But yeah. And then I ended up sort of getting more into monetary policy. And that's where I was like, okay, crypto is kind of converging back into my life. And then Twitter stuff happened and I was like, okay, I guess I'll just accelerate this and really jump in.
Well, that was going to be that was what I was interested in. I find crypto very generational, not in terms of how old you are, but when you entered. So Taylor is my OG, right? Taylor was in crypto way before me. And when I entered crypto, I actually felt the most kinship with people like Brian, who are just a little bit ahead of me. The people who are early Bitcoin people, I was like, whoa, this is too intense for me. And now I've sort of weathered a bear bull, and I can clearly see that there's at least one, maybe two generations that came after me that have very different presumptions. People who are more into crypto than I am, and I bring up big blocking, and they're like, big block?
What is that? Yeah.
People were gonna murder each other over this. People were this most contentious thing in the world. And so
and there's a whole generation of people who don't know that an entire civil war raged for years.
Well,
that blows my mind every day.
Yeah,
the book Block Wars is really good. I recommend that. I don't remember who it's by. It's by I think the BitMEX research person or something. It's a self-published book, but it's just basically about everyone losing their mind and fighting a brutal civil war over block size, which involved a lot of people running into each other's meetings and being stop everything.
Speaking of the big block stuff, has Roger Ver purposefully just disappeared, or have I just exited his ecosystem out of my brain somehow, or my awareness?
Does he have his own conference circuit the way the BSV people have their alternate?
They're an alternate ecosystem that we just don't see anymore.
I see Calvin pop up occasionally.
I was about to say Calvin was out of my radar for so long, and then he replied in the most weird way to me this week, and I was like, "Oh God, you exist! Get."
A video of him being interviewed where he's look, it's clear now that Craig Wright is the inventor of BSV. And I was okay, this is how this story ends. We just
you mean of BS of BTC, right? Of Bitcoin.
No, he was basically saying everyone needs to stop arguing about Craig being the founder of Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, he was capitulating.
Undeniable is that he invented the most important chain, BSV. It's just a great like way to back off of an argument that you've taken to the very bottom of the pit. They're no longer really pushing the like Craig is Satoshi thing. They're just saying it doesn't matter now.
Right.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay.
I know I shouldn't talk about this show, Ledger. You're gonna get sued now. Send all the legal letters, Brian.
Please don't. I can't afford lawsuits. Peter McCormack already showed me how miserably pointless it all is. I would just be like, yeah, you're Satoshi, dude. Whatever. Please drop this lawsuit.
This honestly though, this conversation ties very nicely back into the like, why do things happen in this space? Like, why do exit scams happen so frequently? I think one of the biggest problems waiting to be solved is like information and how information spreads and how we can like vet information better. Because in this space, the loudest and most sort of polarized voices win, period. And they not facts whatsoever. And that's why, like, whether it's ICOs, whether it's all the Bitcoin spinoffs, whether it's, you know, an exchange that pops up out of nowhere and like just wants to get trillions of dollars and then exit, they're able to do so with relative ease because there's like the way that we talk and where we talk and how we talk, there's no way to vet anything. And there's no way to even promote good content, right? Like it's you retweet, you reply, you like things that are outrageous, not that are good or correct or healthy at all.
Yeah. The only way to promote good content is just to send people to Up Only TV. That's like the guaranteed way to get good content, right? All right, Allison.
It also help everything FUD. Like someone was saying it was like we were talking about Quadriga on this show, and you're just doing it. It just does everyone a favor when like any bad news is just labeled FUD. You know, it's like
you're a troll and you're fudding, and therefore your argument that's based in reality is irrelevant. Yeah.
So, Allison, what questions do you have for Aaron, host of Exit Scam?
Well, so I don't want to give any spoilers away because I was really interested in like some of the like theories you posed. I don't know how to say it without like I don't want to.
We don't have to go for.
If you haven't listened, turn off the stream now. Go listen.
Hey, don't say that.
And then come back.
Yeah, we still have some Ethereum economic policy stuff to discuss.
Oh my God, I can't believe you tricked me into this.
Yeah. No, I think with the way we can phrase this, Allison, is do you think Aaron's not allowed to say because he has his narrative in the show. Taylor, Allison, and myself, do we think Gerald Cotton is dead? Without spoiling what Aaron brought to the table in the show, what is our takeaway?
You can even spoil because I want to hear what you all think with all the information. Like I want to hear how you all
like how do you come to the justification of it?
Yeah. Okay. So, it's such a hard question. For me, I think the most, like the reason I've been obsessed with Quadriga and still remain obsessed is that I don't know. And the way I get answers to like hard existential questions is to like research and get all the information. And in this case, literally like dive into the blockchain. And this is such a weird instance where the more information you get, the more unclear it is. And like, when I zoom out and I look at everything as a whole, I can make super valid arguments for like he's definitely dead and super valid arguments for he's definitely not dead, which is intriguing in itself. I don't know. I think the one thing I'll say is that the more time that passes and he hasn't like reappeared, but also like there haven't even been like really a lot of new information that's come out. The more time that goes on in this sort of state, the more likely he is that he's dead. However,
You got.
I don't know. I can argue.
Yes or
I
no,
could.
yes or
I
no,
could
yes or
tell
no,
you.
yes or no. Got to do it.
I don't know.
She refuses.
Because I like. It's like I wake up and yeah, he's definitely dead. And then I wake up the next morning. I'm like, nah, he's not. It's all. If I had to choose, I'd probably say that he's probably dead.
All right, Taylor votes dead. We finally got it from her. Allison, dead or alive?
So I was going back and forth when I was listening to the whole thing. Whether he's dead or alive, I think there was a level of government involvement into either protecting him or killing him. But I personally, I don't know, the whole like learning how to fly and having like, I don't know, some experience in like national security and hearing these sort of stories. It's like, it is a very stereotypical, like you learn how to fly so that you don't have to deal with, you know, any sort of customs or any sort of officials asking for identification. And then just to like disappear at such a perfect moment. I don't know, maybe he did just happen to get sick and die, but it seems like maybe there was some protection or
Something.
Murder.
Something.
A murder.
Alive or dead?
I think he's alive.
Okay. One alive.
I don't know.
One dead, so I'm the tiebreaker. All right, Aaron, here's where I break it down. All the stuff. Like, he had every capacity to be an exit scam and disappear. Every capacity. Everything makes sense to do it. The only thing that makes me lean towards him being dead is where he left his wife. So, like, she still lives in Halifax. She's a teacher. She has no money. Like, she's in an apartment.
This is how you know Winter loves his wife.
Men are dogs. Men are dogs. I'm just gonna say that. Men are dogs. I know men who leave their wives for far less money than that. So
he's a scammer. He's a scammer.
Wait,
I would not take he loves his wife so much so he wouldn't scam her.
If he's alive, I truly believe his wife was not in on it. There's no way she could be in on it.
Yes, I agree with that.
Because there's nothing in it for her at all. Yes. So why would she have cooperated? So if he pulled the wool over his wife's eyes as well, then I say he's alive. But that's the one caveat, because if she knows, everything sucks for her currently in this whole affair. So I think he's alive, because I think he's alive, but his wife is innocent. Like, his wife doesn't actually know. That's my best case scenario.
Yeah. I definitely agree that his wife can't know. Either way, his wife doesn't know, because at this point she would have said something. She would have done something.
Somebody
right? Her life is, yeah.
If you keep that secret to your grave, that's like that would truly be like a scammer finding like a true Bonnie and Clyde match.
Okay, people don't know who we're talking about. We're talking about Gerald Cotton. He ran Quadriga, Canada's largest Bitcoin exchange. He rugged the exchange. The whole thing was a Ponzi.
And his wife.
The whole thing.
He rugged his wife.
Yeah, the whole thing was a Ponzi scheme throughout until it was ready to explode. He went to India and he died. That's like, you don't have to watch the show to know any of that.
Wait, you missed the biggest part though. Nobody knew it was a Ponzi for months. The original story that came out was, so he dies in December. Nobody knows he's dead though, except for the people around him. And then in about end of January or February of 2019, there's this post that like pops up and it's like, hi, we're Quadriga. The founder died. And also we can't find the private keys to the wallets, to the cold storage. So we can't, we're going to just pause no, they didn't even say we're going to pause the exchange. We're working on it. And they didn't pause the exchange. And then a couple weeks later, they finally turned off deposits. And that was like,
and for the audience, it was to the tune of what, $280 million at the time.
Yeah, so there's $280 million that was just like originally locked in the cold storage that nobody had access to, which is a story in itself, right? How the hell does this fairly legitimate exchange that's been operating for years not be able to access the cold storage? That's how I got into it, right? I was like, well, let's go find these cold wallets.
Right. And to one more thing to clarify is how this all kind of began. He was a scammer before. Just listen to the show for that story because it's fascinating in its own right. Is how he became like he came into Quadriga with the intent of scamming, no doubt about it. He had scammed ahead of time, so he came in to scam. As Aaron noted about like just changing the content management system to like the way he initially started doing it was, what was that number, Aaron? It was like 500 Bitcoin or $5 million. What was it?
I mean, so he had a fake account. You're talking about the Chris Marquet account, which he was funding.
He created a fake account and then just like changed the number for the balance.
Basically, he created a bunch of fake accounts, but the biggest one was called Chris Marquet, and he put about $500 million of dollars into that, which you can do in a CMS very easily. It's very easy to
change the database
in a CMS, and that also means that no one was looking at the net amount in the CMS versus the net amount in any cold storage. Of course, you weren't looking. No one looks when they're scamming and it's like, oh, wow, our books don't balance. What's going on here? But at that point, from the point he put those fake $500 million in, there's no way the exchange could be solvent because we know that the number in the CMS is always going to be way higher than the actual amount of coins.
Yeah,
and that was
it's always missing at least 500 million.
That was also a technique to make it the biggest exchange. So a lot of what he was doing was trading to create fake volume. You also see like a premium for Bitcoin price at Quadriga consistently. A lot of people who lost money in Quadriga were using Quadriga to arb because Quadriga always had really high Bitcoin prices. The reason it really had really high Bitcoin prices was that the founder was using a fake account to have a perpetual bid with fake Canadian dollars to sell Bitcoin. And so the number was always high because he never stopped bidding. It was consistently like there's never a point where it's not higher than it should be. And that's all basically how it became the biggest exchange, which is why people trusted it. There's a lot of like circular logic in this where it's like, well, I saw this, so I trust it. And then behind that are just a series of deceptions.
So he was, the show is Exit Scam. It's at exitscam.show. If you want to hear the whole story of how Quadriga came to be, the story of the founder, how it failed, and then the crazy mysteries around his supposed death and potential cover-up, it's all there at exitscam.show. This thing is like narrated. If anybody listened to Serial or any of the true crime type of highly produced podcasts, people won't know this, but Aaron Lammer is like a career podcast producer. This is what he's done. He's got the largest podcast in the journalism space, tons of experience with high production quality. So for all the production quality you don't get in Up Only TV, you'll get in Exit Scam. It's very well produced. Even the music, Francis and the Lights, a band that Aaron's part of, is made specifically for the show. It's freaking fantastic. Go to exitscam.show. That's my shill for the podcast. It's one of the best produced pieces of content that I've listened to, and it's specifically for crypto. So I was like unendingly fascinated by it. Thank you for making it.
Thank you for those kind words. We're trying to up the bar on crypto productions and storytelling of all kinds. I feel like people expect the show is just going to be me being like, so like, what do you think here? Let's get a pen on it. Closer to like a documentary kind of podcast feel.
Yeah, very documentary-esque. All right. The two economists in the room, the Ethereum economist and the TradFi economist. We're going to talk about Ethereum economic policies, 1559. Aaron and I will have questions. We're representing the left side of the curve and the center of the curve. You two are the right side of the curve here.
I love this whole setup because Ledger told me 1559 was great, and then I saw tweets by Taylor that was like, no, it's bad, and I was like,
that's why we're here. Taylor, can you summarize?
And you guys, you tricked me because you said we were going to talk about Quadriga.
But I also said, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Okay.
So EIP 1559. Can you tell the audience, which they have had infinite up-only type of content about why it's going to be great. Coins will burn, inflation will go down. What's the bear case?
Yes. Okay, so it's actually I guess I'm better at Twitter than I think I am or something, because probably everything that you've been talking about regarding EIP 1559 is probably correct, and it is a bull case from an economic perspective. Where I sit though as a wallet creator is this was originally proposed and talked about and discussed at length back in as early as the original writings go back to 2014, but was really talked about 2018, 2019 solely with a UX perspective, meaning that we wanted people to be able to send transactions with more price certainty. There's a couple other game theory things that come into play where, for example, now that we do have all this DeFi stuff happening, it's the miners can choose not only what transactions make it into a block, but what order they're in. And so, for example, if I want two transactions to go through back to back as a hedge position, and I really need them both to go through to reduce my risk or reduce my loss, I can back channel the miners some money so that they include both these transactions in this specific order so that I can make money, the miner makes money, but it's not necessarily playing with the network's rules, right? The protocol has these incentives that are at the protocol level, and this is going around that. And so that's what EIP 1559 was originally, and still is, right? It still sets out to make the UX better and to reduce some of these very huge incentive problems at the protocol layer. However, at some point in, I guess, maybe late 2019, and then all the way through today, the narrative shift is it's insane. That entire narrative just went by the wayside. And now it's 100% ultrasound money, deflationary, bull case, number go up, etc. And then, yes. And then, so I'm like, all right, cool. This is crypto. That's normal. But then I had to start designing the new interface for people who actually use Ethereum and really diving into the intricacies. Wow, cannot speak. And specifically from a normal user perspective, right? I want to send ETH. What fee do I include? That perspective, and realize God, this is gonna not be as easy this isn't gonna be as easy as they've made it out to be. I'm still not convinced it's a UX perspective for most users, but number go up.
Wait, it's kind of like a thing like the new Uniswap where it's okay, you got to set your own liquidity bandwidth, and it's all I want is a function that's do the normal thing, do whatever a normal person would do here.
That's called Curve version 2.
So this is a very popular thing in crypto, right? Because there is such there's a very deep sort of theoretical researcher layer of people and engineer brain layer of people. And they really get, as they should, by the way, that's their job. They can get sucked into the minutia of all of it. But maybe if they came up for air every once in a while, they would realize most of us are just trying to send transactions, period, or most of us are just trying to make this trade, period. And even though you've solved this super complex thing that game theory has never been seen before in its life or whatever, cool. Can I send a transaction though? Can I use this thing?
For a fee that's not obscene.
Make a decision. Yeah. Your experience.
Allison, are you a yield farmer?
I am not, no.
Oh.
Yeah, I stay away from a lot of technical things, and I look at more of the global macroeconomic perspectives, just because that's where I guess all of my background is.
So what are your...
Do you have insight into, especially South America, right? Inflation and deflation, what are some of the, maybe the unintended consequences when there's been large shifts to either inflation or deflation? This isn't as centralized or corrupt, but I would guess South America would have a lot of that, right?
Yeah, and it does. And so I think the narratives are always that like, oh, inflation is this awful, terrible thing. Inflation is so bad. Oh, we need to, create something that doesn't have any level of it. And I think the biggest problem too with like the hyperinflation narrative, where people say, oh, the dollar is going to hyperinflate and it's going to zero, its value is going to zero and blah, 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 is that hyperinflation is a symptom of a greater issue. It's not a causal mechanism that destroys institutions. It's the result of crumbling institutions. So when you see these places in Latin America, South America, I don't know, having crazy levels of inflation. Venezuela, for example, had inflation of 10 million% at one point, which is absolutely absurd. But it doesn't just come with the devaluation of their currency. It comes with the mass destruction of everything. I think the average Venezuelan lost 19 pounds in 2018. 60% of hospitals didn't have running water. It wasn't a situation that you wanted. I actually wrote about this the other day, where I was like, people are calling for, like it's going to be great when the dollar goes to zero. It's not, right? So if you want like, hyperinflation for that reason, you have to understand that, like, yes, with revolutions and regime changes, usually comes mass destruction and you build from the rubble. But the implications with the dollar having the hegemony it's like global financial ruin. So that's important to remember. In terms of monetary system, deflation can have, I have to be so careful with this because I'm gonna get wrecked.
I was about to say,
Right.
This is the answer I want though, because somebody knows this answer, and we are not talking. We're not talking about this, but that's the thing. Early Vitalik writings were pushed back against people saying Ethereum needs to have lower inflation. Early Vitalik writings was very steadfast in saying, no, it needs to have the right inflation.
Yes, because I think it depends. And so when you look at like the current monetary mechanisms in place in the United States, it's very clear that there is a non-zero optimal level of inflation. And I think a lot of people, there's a huge misunderstanding that, oh, well, if our dollars lose value, then it's this, terrible, awful thing. And it means we're going to zero. And it means that, we're all going to be poor, which is like not necessarily the case. Deflationary mechanisms can lead to hyperinflation in traditional monetary settings because it leads to money hoarding. And then it leads to dumping when the economy kicks back up, which is sort of what we've seen. Well, it's exactly what we saw last year. March of 2020, we had a deflationary period, even though the Fed injected a bunch of money into the economy. It's because people were money hoarding or just not spending because you couldn't really leave your house. There was nowhere to spend and there was a lot of future uncertainty. And what's happening now is that we're seeing a higher level of inflation because people are going back to spending. So it's important to recognize that sometimes, like with inflation, the whole like the consumer behavioral perspective behind it is that, okay, if people are, and this is like a book example. I'm not saying this is what I think, just so everybody's aware. Don't at me. But it's that, as a currency is devalued, people are incentivized to let go of it or to spend it. And so that's sort of the idea behind, if you had a bunch of diamonds, you'd want to charge a super high price and you'd probably want to sit on them because it's a diamond, it's rare, it's a commodity, as opposed to like when you have a currency, it going down in value somewhat incentivizes you getting rid of it through spending. So
a modest inflationary target of say 2% can encourage economic productivity because people are incentivized to take cash and put it to work rather than to hoard it. That's the general idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, getting like more technical, like looking at the actual like money equation, MV equals PY, you have productivity in there. When you fix monetary base, even you end up having to toy more with like price and velocity, but it's a very like complicated scenario where there really isn't.
That Allison's like 170 IQ.
The thing is, I don't like talk a lot about these sort of principles because I feel like I'm already so jaded, but I see that like when you're talking earlier about like these outrageous tweets, right? Saying, oh, I saw one today that was like hyperinflation is the leading cause of inequality. I worked for a global financial institution. I'm not going to say which one because I'll get wrecked. for a while, and I was studying productivity heavily. And like, that's just not true, you know, like that's not what's happening. And to some extent, and I've talked about this too. Yeah, I think inflation is facing a structural issue, especially in the United States. And I think that that's a problem. And I think that the Fed is going to be a little bit slow to act. I don't really know what's going on in Powell's brain right now. The Fed is growing in division as well. Like, there's definitely no, it's not a united decision. If you actually look at the dot plots and what the FOMC is saying, it's clear that a lot of people see interest rate hike as high as 2% in 2023. So I don't know. I think
I have a
with
question.
those stories, it's yes.
So, and this is going to get back to, I want to like somehow transition this back to Ethereum and productivity and technology, but technological advancements are typically considered deflationary,
right?
Because you're requiring less to accomplish the same amount, because you're becoming more productive with less effort, and therefore you need fewer human beings or whatever to get paid to participate. And therefore, it creates a deflationary effect. If you combine this with Ethereum and like try to like put all this together and pretend we know the future, what threats do y'all think there are when you take these concepts of like how inflation and deflation play against each other, how productivity and the velocity of money fits in, and then you like say, okay, we're going to make Ethereum deflationary. This is also disruptive technology that takes a lot of institutions out of the picture, right? It makes it more efficient, the deflationary effects of technology. Like, what are some of the things that could happen here in your mind?
All right. So right now we see a lot of activity has moved, especially in the DeFi yield farming space, right? Has moved from Ethereum to Binance Smart Chain. In my opinion, don't at me on this. Do not at me on this.
She supports low fees, but not necessarily Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah, I personally, I think that the movement of that money to Binance Smart Chain is not a good thing. And it's not because I hold a bunch of ETH, actually, even though that's the argument that Twitter is going to come at me with, right? Is that, well, you hold ETH, of course it's a bad thing. Actually, no, what I'm most concerned about is that the level of diligence on Binance Smart Chain and the way that that entire ecosystem is promoted from the very top, right? From Binance and CZ himself, the whole thing is built in a way that promotes a lack of diligence, a lot of FOMO. And we've seen an immense amount of wreckage happen for no reason. Like, at least on Ethereum, when the things were getting rugged or things were getting hacked, it was like novel, a little bit novel. Binance, for example, there was, God, I can't even keep them straight anymore. Let's say, I think it was the Pancake Bunny thing.
Pancake Swap.
Pancake Swap existed. That got hacked. And then there was this thing called Auto Shark, which was a literal clone of Pancake Swap. So Pancake Swap gets hacked, and a week later, Auto Shark gets hacked. Well, they were clones. The most amazing thing about that is the fact that it took a week to hack Auto Shark. Yeah, right? Because they were clones. If you can hack one, you can hack.
It might have been a different one. It might have been something called Bunny. Pancake Swap, I don't think has been hacked. That's like the the Uniswap V2 clone of
Root or an animal named thing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Someone in the chat say what they are. But anyway, so there's the whatever.
Okay.
Then there's Auto Shark.
Pancake. You were right initially. It's my bad. Blame Ledger as
Pancake
always.
Bunny.
Pancake Bunny is the yield aggregator for Pancake Swap. So maybe
so
Pancake
Bunny
got hacked, and you were right. I heard Pancake, and I think Pancake Swap.
There's a lot of pancakes going on, because then there's also a thing called Pancake Honey, which then also got wrecked. So my point with all this, right, is if things are too deflationary on Ethereum, it is going to drive the price of ETH up, but it's also going to drive the hoarding up, right? So for example, right now, if you were to tell me that next year the inflation for the US dollar was to be 0, I would have so much USD in my mattress, right? I would not be trying to buy stocks, not trying to buy real estate. I'm going to put it in my mattress and turn into one of those people. And the same thing we've seen with Bitcoin, right? Why would you spend your Bitcoin? Why would you buy coffee? That's going to be a very expensive coffee next year. And so the sort of like balancing, right, is with Bitcoin, which it has rightfully, I guess, taken its position as like we are a store of value. That's actually fine, right? We're not using Bitcoin to buy coffee. The Bitcoin community with the big block war kind of decided that, right? We all kind of agreed, like, okay, Bitcoin store of value. Ethereum, though, took a different position. We want to use Ethereum. Ethereum is fuel for the network. It's the gas to run the world computer, all of those narratives. And if you actually want to use ETH to power these dApps, the entirety of decentralized finance, then you need people to use their Ether, to spend their Ether. If Ether is deflationary, and the price pumps up, right? On the one hand, it's going to be more expensive to transact just relative to anything else if Ether goes up relative to anything else. But on the other is, why would you spend it, period? Right? If you expect the price to continue going up because of these deflationary aspects, why spend it to pay for this yield farming thing that you might get wrecked on or you might make a bunch on, period.
This is the argument against deflationary policies globally, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then when you do take into account the fact that the entire world that we play in is open source, and the lack of trustworthy information where the motives behind the person speaking are clear, right? The fact that Binance Smart Chain can come out of nowhere as a literal fork of Ethereum, but with like 3 parameters changed, right? They made the blocks bigger, they made the blocks faster, and then they made it so you don't have miners, you have like 12 people that are now running a forked version of Geth with some configs changed, right? That's what Binance Smart Chain is. So then you see all the money move off of Ethereum into this thing. You see a lot of loss happening because of the level of scams, the lack of diligence, et cetera. But the entire thing from the ground up is actually it's not stable, right? It's not being built for the long run. It's being built to like get traction now, move money now. We're not trying to build a better Geth. We're just going to fork Geth and like brute force it and throw some bigger AWS servers at it. And in my opinion is that's not good for the ecosystem. That's not good for cryptocurrency on the whole, because in my opinion, we want things to be like, I'm okay with a certain level of experimentation, but when it gets out of control and it's just all scams and greed and FOMO and the values have all been lost because everyone just wants money, that's where I see it being very problematic. And that's where I see, I guess, the greatest threat to crypto. Like, I don't think any one scam is going to kill crypto. I think that if crypto just solely becomes 100% about making the quickest buck now with the least amount of effort, that is a threat to cryptocurrency. And that's a boon to fiat.
So I want to get back to the Coinbase thing of, we want to list everything. We're not trying to make a determination of whether something is worth buying or not, or like that meets some threshold for being listed. Because isn't curation a very valuable moat? Like, to say we are curating assets that exist in a decentralized ecosystem that have some reason, one way or the other, why they've been curated to be purchased here or to be listed here or shown here.
Wait, I'll say this. I never had a problem telling my in real life people, like my parents' friends, right? Go, you want to get in on this shit? Go to Coinbase, get yourself, watch the price, right? Because it was 1, easy, 2, trustworthy, 3, they couldn't screw it up, well, right? They couldn't screw it. I mean, they could screw it up, but like realistically, it was the most certain way to not screw something up.
It's right? Okay. They're opening up some serious lanes to competitors that are making it easy and cheap to transact, and creating curated lists of things that are purchasable. Not to like shill our partner, but like, I partnered with Blockfolio for a reason. Like, they offer pretty good mobile first friendly for doing those things. And I've been amazed that Coinbase has totally given up their moat of like, you go there and basically what's listed is something that's at least legitimate. And then like Shiba Inu got listed, and Brian Armstrong comes out and says like, yeah, we want to list everything. We don't have any opinions about it, whatever it takes. Aaron,
right. Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
Well,
No, Aaron, go.
so I think Coinbase wants to become a bank in a way. I mean, like Coinbase just unveiled that they're doing 4% interest, or I think it's like 3.92% on deposits there. So I know this sounds like a strange thing, but for some people, I think Shiba Inu is probably their on-ramp into crypto in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? Doge is definitely a lot of people's on-ramp. All of the descendant puppies of Doge are each entry.
Descendant puppies.
Asses.
Yeah. And so you think about like, okay, what's going to, like, you know, a business like Coinbase is how many new users do we have? How many people are we signing up? How much are we growing our base? The fact that you can't send your Shiba Inu to Coinbase is a problem for them, right? If you got it somewhere else, you basically want it to be a master wallet. You have like all these other apps now, particularly with like Ethereum stuff, where it's like, oh, it can take anything. Well, that makes it a problem for Coinbase to not take it, to the fact where I know a lot of people send stuff to Coinbase that Coinbase can't receive. People are sending NFTs to Coinbase Ethereum wallets that are just, no, that's it.
And for what it's worth, people are talking in the chat like, oh, we're like pro gatekeepers and all this stuff. I actually think the better solution is somewhere in the middle, where curation is like, here's things that are vetted. It's like, here's things that are verified on XYZ lists of, you know, here's who's behind them. Here's what's going on there. And then access is a different thing. Like, you just don't have to necessarily promote like, oh, look, we've listed ICP, which is 1,000x to whatever the investor price was, and it's called Internet Computer. It's down 96% from list, you know, and that's like one of the best scams because it's a VC scam. But like, you know, then there's the dog coins and stuff. It's like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I wanna hit on this, right? Okay. The reason that cryptocurrency has the potential to be like really game changing in the long run is the fact that it's decentralized, and is the fact that there's not one person who can shut you down or control you. And that's the reason why you should hold your own crypto in your own wallet and not let anyone else have access to it and not rely on an exchange. However, the reality is that in order to get from where people currently are, which is they have a bank account and maybe they've used like PayPal and Venmo, and maybe they have like an E-Trade account where they play with some stocks once in a while, right? Like that's traditionally like how people operate. They have to get into crypto somehow. They are going to have to get into crypto, and that's where Coinbase has historically come in. And I trusted Coinbase to do that with reasonable amount of like safety guards, right? That's why I told people, like I told my parents and their friends to use Coinbase. I didn't tell them to use my wallet because there's a lot that can go wrong. And I'm a big fan of like progressive onboarding. So get your stuff on Coinbase. Now watch how this works, right? Watch it go up and watch it go down too. Now, okay, you want to take another, you know, you want to take some more steps in. Okay, now that you get the feel for it, you can slowly move your money off the exchange. You can play with it. You don't want to move all your money off the exchange. This is what we saw during ICO era, was like people would like buy, take their life savings, buy Ether on Coinbase, and then send that entire pile in a single transaction to their wallet that they had just created and never save the private key. And then email us and go, where's my money?
Right. Yeah, you have to have seen as many of these horror stories as almost anyone, like the amount of people that have screwed it up.
It's right. And so in my opinion, the way that sort of this onboarding around the whole ecosystem works is like you buy on a trustworthy exchange that has these guardrails, and then slowly you can play around in their little ecosystem and then take some of that money and move it to your own wallet, and take some of that money that's in your wallet and play with the DeFi things. And yeah, you get rugged, you can get wrecked, right? But at least that's maybe like 5% of 5% of 5%. Yeah. You lose that to a rug, you've learned your lesson, but everyone's okay. The problem that I see a lot, and especially with Coinbase trying to list everything, is, you know, people do put their entire life savings, especially in a very bullish environment. They will not pay their credit cards, or they will take out loans specifically to buy crypto. And then they get wrecked.
That's what no, not about the get wrecked part. Allison did that though, right? You just max out all your credit cards and buy crypto with it, and now you're retired.
I was thinking of a specific Twitter user who advocates for that, but
yeah, not
yeah. Won't name any names.
Didn't Peter McCormick take out loans before the last Bitcoin run?
Peter, shame on you.
Peter, come on, man. And now he's talking about his freaking car too, and I just want to slap him.
Peter's in timeout, but he has a Maserati, so bought his dad one, whatever it was.
I agree with something Taylor said, which is I feel like an underrated strategy for people who are getting into crypto is to keep a bunch of small pots, a bunch of places, rather
it's the
than
Horcrux method, Aaron.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, most people are not going to keep a paper wallet in a safe. It's unrealistic. It is realistic to say, if you have a bunch of, X dollars in there, put it in 5 different places. Like, I agree about the decentralization, but honestly, like, putting Bitcoin in the Coinbase vault is a pretty safe place to keep it relative to a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know, keep a quarter of your money in the Coinbase vault, keep a quarter somewhere else. I got hacked in the Cryptopia hack, that I lost some
RIP Aaron's sumo coin. The mascot token of CoinTalk.
Yeah. Sumo coin was a Monero clone, very, very low liquidity Monero clone, which
don't buy it. Don't buy Sumo.
I don't think it still exists anymore.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I got wiped out in the Cryptopia hack, but I'm glad I did not put all of my ether onto Cryptopia, towards that end. It's probably the safest thing you can do is just put yourself in a place where you assume you're going to lose coins at some base and say don't have more coins than you can afford to lose in one of your coin locations.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if you have not lost at least one chunk of money, then you actually are not part of crypto yet. It's part of the onboarding experience. You got to get rugged, you got to get wrecked, you got to accidentally send it. Like me, right? My first oopsies was hand typing a Bitcoin address and not typing it correctly and sending, I won't say how much. It was not 0.001 Bitcoin in those days that you sent, right?
Yeah, probably a lot.
Never to be seen again. It wasn't a lot back then, but
Allison,
damn.
your initiation will be complete when you get rugged.
No.
At the end of the show, we're going to rob you.
Perfect.
I've rugged myself several times. I thought I was pretty good about, the way I do my address management and all that kind of stuff. And I screwed up by sending, fortunately it wasn't a ton of money. It was about $1,000 worth of an altcoin to a Kraken address that was a USDC Kraken address. And I thought that I was sending USDC, and I just copied something wrong in the process. And I finally got it back, but the altcoin was down 90% in that time. So I got rugged for 90% by the 3-month delay or whatever it took to get it back from Kraken. And it was nice of them to even get to it. I'm sure they're.
I was about to say that's excellent customer service. Sending it to that wrong address is a pain for them.
3 months is excellent customer service in crypto land.
Well, did you know that if you want to deposit Ethereum Classic on a Kraken, it takes about 3 months just because of the 51% attack?
Yeah, it takes 1,500 confirmations or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So when I saw the ETC price was through the moon, I was like, get it onto an exchange.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's on the exchange now, but
but it's down again. It took a month. That's how the best pumps used to happen back in the day on Bittrex. It's our wallet is down for maintenance, and then the coin just goes up 400%, and it dumps as soon as the right before the wallet comes back on. But the people who had their money on the exchange, they got to sell. Yeah. So Allison, we have to get you initiated. We have to find.
I've probably rugged myself, to be honest. even in general, like outside of crypto, I like keep my money spread across like bank accounts, and I like never know where I actually bugged myself today because I didn't pay attention to the fact that my bank was switching from like MasterCard to Visa or vice versa. So I went to use my card and it like wasn't working. And my vet called me because my horse broke her leg and the vet had to come out, whatever. And they were like, hey, your card's not working. And I was like, oh crap. But I just moved and I hadn't changed my address. So I like call my bank and I'm like, hey, can I get a card? And they're like, we sent you one to the wrong address, but it's a holiday. So like you can't have your money until like next week. And I'm like, great, perfect. So, I mean, I've probably already done that. There's like definitely places where I've put coins and I don't know what happened or where they went because I write things down and then I just moved and threw a bunch of stuff away.
So that's just a way of saying you bought drugs with it and you don't want to say where it went.
You know, it's legal in California, so I don't even need.
I woke up this morning and thought I had somehow rugged myself because I opened up my wallet and it had sent a CryptoPunk out of my wallet in the middle of the night. And the way the contract works, if you put it up for sale and someone buys it, it's just gone, and then you have to go and claim. I now know you have to go and claim the funds. That's another transaction to pull out of it. But I was just like, huh, punk go out, no money come back. Oh dear.
Aaron also flexing by talking about his CryptoPunk sale.
I came here to flex. I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't get to go on live stream. Actually, that was not a flex. That was a desperately trying to resell it for the price I paid, so I don't have to. And I can see CryptoPunks going to like 1 ETH in a bear market, and I did not want to be stuck on this one. I had been doing well, selling them on the way.
Could you send an on-chain message to your CryptoPunk buyer and ask them if they're also interested in rare me bits? I've got one for sale.
I could have come to, but weren't you saying that you were going to load up on me bits, Brian?
I want to load up on me bits. I'm just too poor to do it.
Would you like? Looks kind of like me because my Meebit actually came out. It's like me with hair, basically.
Yeah, I want to see your Meebit. Dox your Meebit in Telegram. Don't do it on Up Only, or people will just start like, you know, tracing your wallets. They'll do. Taylor will do it. She'll do this investigative research and she'll find all your money, all your Horcruxes.
I assume that Taylor knows everything about me already. Just in the few minutes I spent with her doing Quadriga blockchain analysis, I was like, okay.
The few minutes you spent with me doing
5 hours.
So Taylor, before we go, I'd like to get a percentage chance of total failure due to 1559 and ETH 2.0 and layer 2 scaling, like this trifecta of extraordinary changes to the Ethereum ecosystem. What percentage do you give that it all just blows up in our faces?
That all does like 0.
Okay.
This is the thing. So when I look at anything with a certain level of seriousness, right? The thing that the attributes I'm looking for are actually like resilience above all else, because this is a very experimental space and we're all very young. And like, I mean, I use this example a lot, but I'm a CEO, and like that probably shouldn't be a thing that exists.
Wait, why?
Right? Like,
oh, you mean?
Because like before crypto, I was building WordPress websites for like small businesses.
Hey, shout out. That's the ecosystem that I came from. We can.
And then like what happened?
Most crypto CEO, I would rank you in the top 1% of trustworthy crypto CEOs.
Yeah, Chad is asking where you can follow all these people. We'll put it all in the show notes at uponly.tv. Also, just go to Uponly TV on Twitter, and we have like links out to their Twitters and their websites and all that. But it's mycrypto.com. Don't do any phishing sites. Like, there's no website with more warnings about not screwing stuff up than MyCrypto, because I just imagine like people get phished all the time in this ecosystem, and y'all just have to put all these things on your site.
We've gotten better. The modal is gone. If you haven't been to our site in a while, we used to have a 10-page modal that you could not click out of, and the buttons on purpose, where the button was to like go to the next slide, would hop around on you. Yeah. And it was a knowledge dump. It was like, this is everything that could go wrong that we see going wrong. Please don't do this. I have no idea if it actually helped, but it annoyed people.
So you got me excited by saying,
okay, resilience.
You said like zero.
Like zero.
That's the percentage.
I think
that's not exactly zero. There's a little bit of a hedge there, but it's almost zero.
So yeah, if you ask me like, can Bitcoin go to zero? I would say no, with a very high degree of certainty. Can this entire Ethereum thing blow up? I'm not as confident as with Bitcoin, but it's in the same range. Where if you ask me about any other coin, I would be like, oh yeah, there's a possibility that it actually goes to zero. Ethereum though, it's insanely resilient. You have so many different players and so many different experts who are all not only financially invested in its success, but emotionally, like very, very, very emotionally invested. Ethereum is probably one of the one ecosystems where I do see people who definitely like they don't have to work and they work their asses off every single day to keep it, trying to make it better, keep it online, whatever you want to call it. I think that there's a definite probability that there will be unforeseen hiccups or unforeseen consequences, and it will be a learning experience, just like all of our big screw ups.
I want to get a different percentage. So what do you think the percent is? Let's take like the top 10 DeFi, like the DPI index. What do you think the chance that one of those smart contracts has a catastrophic failure, that we see a blue chip go down?
Don't say the DPI.
So
I like the DPI. I like the.
But that would be a black swan DeFi event if
something with a lot of money, like Wi-Fi vault got hacked or whatever. Yeah.
So I'll quote Robert Leshner, one of the very first conversations I had with him years ago. I said that, I was generally worried about smart contracts in general. And his response was, yes, there's always a non-zero risk of a bug being in a smart contract. And I would say that if you ask him today, he would probably give the same answer. He's very aware, which is also why I like Compound in general, because the culture of that team and Robert specifically are aware of that non-zero risk. The things that I watch out for are when the CEO or when the leadership or when the community is just so gung-ho, anyone that tells you that there's no risk, that's like the biggest red flag, run, right? Because the ones that, right, you ask Maker, you ask the DAI folks, like, hey, like, what could go wrong? They'll give you a huge list, but that's what makes them resilient, right? That's, if you looked at the progress on Maker since March 12th of last year through today, it's insane. It's insane how many things that they've updated. When flash loans first came out, they're like, here's the list of stuff that we need to adjust. Here's all of the attack vectors. Here's all of the hypotheticals. That's what, in my opinion, makes something strong. It's not the fact that something bad can't happen. It's that they're aware of it. And they're ready to adjust if it does. They have a plan of attack if it does.
Titan was like, yeah, that Maker thing where it's 175% collateralized. That's cool, but what if we made it 75% collateralized instead? What could possibly go wrong?
I have a rule with my personal team is like, if I know about some degen thing, get out. And actually on the Titan thing happened on the same day as our all hands that I joined. I was like, guys, this thing, and it has like 5 billion APY. We should definitely put a little bit in this. And everyone was like, exit.
Yeah. One of my friends was in it for quite a while, and he just got scared the night before it went to zero, and he got out. So he made out like a bandit on it. But
yeah,
my thing is if something has this this one thing, and it's like we never expected that to happen, that one thing that causes this catastrophic event. It's like a magnet for where attacks will occur. Loops, if y'all know Loops on Twitter, he's like this old school, he's a hacker, and Loops 22 or something like that. And he was like, some of y'all are all right. Don't buy Titan tomorrow or something like that. And then Titan went to zero. So I actually think people identified a potential cascading event that would have outsized effects once it began. And that's what caused, Titan to go to zero, is it just kept minting to try to make up for the collateralization ratio, using itself as the buffer for the, for what it was doing. Mm-hmm. And it was like, that's how something goes to zero. It's like if George Soros came in and was like, I'm going to attack it, that's what he would do. If going to attack a peg or a currency or a mandate. Like that's how that things get unpegged is when there's that vulnerability.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and also like anyone and
stable coins.
oh.
The one I wish could have launched was Basis. Taylor, do you remember Basis?
I do.
Yeah.
That their lineup of what do they call them? All the people backing Basis, excited about Basis, was incredible.
Yeah, and then they talked to the SEC, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're not going to do this." And that was a fully algo stablecoin. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a couple that are they're flying under the radar. There's a couple like pretty interesting stablecoins out there. I'm not going to shill anything, but like I'm watching them with intrigue because there's obviously a demand for stablecoins, and if you can get something that that is truly decentralized, truly algo, and works, I think that's a remarkable push forward. But I think it's going to be a long time until we get to that point.
It would be like fiat. The reputation of the system gives it value. Allison, do you think an algorithmic stablecoin could ever work?
I don't know. And because again, like I don't know. I think of things again in terms of, I don't think of things very technically or like very structurally within like sort of transactional, which of course, obviously when looking in like global monetary regimes, you have to look at transactions at some point too, to figure out how like the entire network would operate on a global scale. But I don't know. And I've been focusing a lot of my time the past few months on like just the simple, like, I don't know, and like El Salvador's adopted Bitcoin as a legal tender, stuff like that. So I've been focusing a lot of time at just looking at the inefficiencies in the systems that already exist. People are probably going to come at me for saying that, but I don't think Bitcoin's going to be the global reserve currency anytime soon. So.
Oh man, she's making enemies.
Yeah.
The amount of apps just flying at you right now.
I know.
You know, some of the things you talked about Venezuela, and then we'll finish off here in a second. The inflationary issues, because it was their own currency, their debt was denominated in other currencies. That's the spiral creation mechanism, right? El Salvador, though, has been priced in dollars. They've not even attempted to manage their own currency. So, like, do you think it was actually that impactful for them to say we're going to introduce Bitcoin as legal tender, or is it just PR?
You know, I'm not sure. It's interesting. Is it a mechanism in which they want to essentially dox their citizens and see and have a more transparent view of transactions? Maybe. I don't know. Is it?
If they want
I don't
to do that,
know.
They would adopt WorldCoin, Sam Altman.
Well, no, because they did the whole
basketball around, get the iris.
They did the whole we'll send you $30 a Bitcoin or whatever, right? So that's a way to get people to be more transparent with what they're doing with their money. But I think if it was a direct control mechanism, they would have just made their own probably. So it's interesting. I'm not really sure what the motivation was exactly behind that. I don't think it was entirely benevolent, but it will become apparent, I'm sure. And I think there's a large chance that it doesn't go so well. And that if it doesn't go so well, I don't think it's going to have like detrimental impacts for Bitcoin if it doesn't go well. But I think it'll have an interesting imprint on the speed of adoption and whether or not other countries look towards like adopting it as a legal tender.
I think if they buy it, if they start accumulating it as a country and then it works, like it goes up and they are in a position of power, that is going to be very tempting for other countries to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor,
right, which by the way, this goes back to the entire like block size debate, right? Like, is Bitcoin something that we use, or is Bitcoin a store of value? I actually think it's really interesting how short-sighted sometimes Bitcoin community, Bitcoin maxis specifically are, because they'll switch their tone very quickly when news like El Salvador comes out, even though they've been really hardcore store value only narrative for so long, you know. And I think that there's a lack of like awareness that these narratives actually, by the way, this is also with EIP 1559, same thing. The narratives clash. You cannot be both a store of value and a useful used currency that people use every single day for everything.
No, I mean, in terms of characteristics of money, one of the characteristics, like one of the necessary requirements is that it is a store of value.
Sorry. So, yes. Yeah. How do I say this? What do you call it when it's like the Bitcoin store of value, like the deflationary fixed, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, like a fixed
a fixed supply, disinflationary store of value. You don't have levers to pull as a central bank when it's Bitcoin. It's deterministic.
Yeah. Well, and it's how do I say this? I think that the Bitcoin narrative has been relying on store of value, not as like we consider the US dollar store of value, but as store of value, meaning like the price is going to be higher tomorrow than it is today, or maybe the price can be higher in 2 years than it is today, rather than like it's not going to lose its value.
Yeah.
Which is how we traditionally look at the currencies the money that we use to buy our coffee every single day, which is, in my opinion, that's sort of what I guess a lot of countries in South America are now looking for Bitcoin as, right? As like the thing that you buy your coffee with, not the thing that you put your savings in so that it exists or so that it gains over the next 2 years. And that, I don't know, I think that there's a conflict there. I think there's going to have to be some people are going to have to duke it out and get to the bottom of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's, if you're in a country where you think the next day your dollar is actually going to zero, then it sort of makes sense to want something that's relatively less volatile to be transactional. Because if like where in Venezuela, it's just such a prime example because 10 million% is like absolutely insane. I think now it's at like 10,000% or something, which is still insane, but like far less than it used to be. And where you legitimately think that one day you're going to wake up and, your money's going to be absolutely worthless. I think it makes sense, but whether or not that's sustainable is an interesting conundrum.
Yeah. And
somebody in the chat brought up Gresham's law, which is where if you have two types of money, bad money drives out good money. And so if people have two things and one has better inherent value than the other, they will pull the one with the better inherent value out of circulation and it'll enter people's savings or be hoarded. And the one with worse value will be the one that's actually used for your coffee buying and stuff. So that I think the El Salvador experiment should express that potentially.
Yeah, that'll express that for sure with the dollar. I think what I was going with is like if you were to go back in time and Venezuela was to use Bitcoin transactionally or whatever, it would definitely drive out the bolivar. But I think especially in El Salvador, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think that's actually a really interesting thought experiment. I would love to see a country, not that I want to see a country that's under this inflationary crisis, but what happens in a country with an inflationary crisis like that, where they adopt Bitcoin in a similar way to what El Salvador did as we just got to change it, and they go to that instead, what actually happens. And it probably depends on a whole bunch of political factors, economic factors, how they are able to wrangle their debt. It just destroys their currency, though, if they do that, right? If you make it available everywhere. But that would be a very interesting experiment. Yeah,
and I think there's someone, I'll have to find it or whatever, but North Korea, maybe Russia, there's been a couple countries who have reissued currency completely, just out of the blue. Or I think in North Korea's case, they had this one thing and then it was 1,000 and they swapped it up for 1, right? And what happens even in a completely authoritarian regime, what happens to average people or average spending when that happens? What do people hoard? Do people hoard or do people spend? That kind of stuff. There's been a couple sort of examples of just how bad it can be. It would be interesting to see what happens if one, the initial country is not North Korea, but two, if it's replacing it with a decentralized currency, right? Because a lot of times the worst aspects of this is coming out of the fact that the entire thing is corrupt, and the reason they're doing it is so that the people at the top can get massively rich, right? So if you take that aspect out of it because it's replacing with Bitcoin, where do the cards fall? How does that play out in reality?
Yeah, kind of going back to what Ledger was saying too about debts and inflating away debts and such. I think it's interesting because a lot of places we see these issues really spread up are in the developing world, which heavily relies on the natural resources. So Venezuela can collateralize a lot of their debt on oil, which is something that they did heavily with Russia coming in and seizing a ton of oil fields. So really the inflation doesn't even become a matter of whether or not we're trying to fix the issue or fix the debt issue. It just becomes a matter of suppressing its population. So in that sense, it's money's weaponized, but And I think that's the narrative people try to like spin and run with, like in the United States, like, oh, the Fed's trying to weaponize inflation. Like, no, they're not. they're just
trying to they are trying to maintain their control though. And there's actually, I'll retweet it, but there's a great quote during the Zuckerberg Libra Congress hearings where one of the congressmen just comes out and says it straight up. He goes, like, we're concerned about the US dollar because it does play this international role. And if there is no US dollar anymore, that means basically that we're going to have to send troops places now. We don't want to do that. Like, we use the US dollar as internationally as a means of control, and like you said, that was sanctions, but it's much deeper than that. And, early Bitcoin narrative, it was a real threat, right? It was a real fear that Bitcoin would threaten the United States government's control internationally because they control the US dollar. That narrative died at some point, but I do think it's still a threat. Like, I don't think it's gone away.
In general, I was going to say, like the dollar has declined in terms of power. I think in terms of like being held in global reserve banks, it's hit its 25-year low. And a lot of that is on part of just a want of foreign banks to diversify more. Globalization has been an increasing theme in general. So, and that comes with the dollar losing some of its value as banks want to diversify. But I don't know. I think, especially with the Fed, it's highly politicized now. And I think the growing threat that the Fed has isn't the weaponization of like inflation against us necessarily, but it forming this very close, intimate relationship with the political system and inflating away growing fiscal debt as presidents tend to lean towards fiscal stimulus, especially now emerging out of the pandemic. So it's increasing tie to the polity in general is what worries me more than them being a little slow to act in terms of what they're doing now with tapering and interest rate hikes.
Just got real big brained here at the end.
Sorry.
Last question, Aaron, are you bullish on WorldCoin iris scanners all over the world?
I think they should have called it eyeball coin. WorldCoin like sounds like a scam that already happened. How can there not have already been a WorldCoin or multiple WorldCoins?
There was a WorldCoin for sure. Yeah, Kobe posted one, I think, on Twitter, some pump and dump from like 2014 or something.
I'm not bullish on it, but it does bring up an interesting like problem that came up during the pandemic that exists in America and the regular world system, which is one of the reasons we couldn't give people stimulus directly is we don't have a way to drop money to everyone in America. We don't have like a nationalized bank account. You sort of have it in the sense of like the IRS has like a tab for you and you can prepay or owe taxes to that account, but that's not a real bank account that you can like buy food with. So I'm not in favor of WorldCoin, but this question of, are we going to have a digital country where we have an address for everyone? I think it's like a pretty big idea. It's certainly one of it's
an emphatic yes as well. Like it's inevitable.
Yeah, and who's going to control it? Like Zuckerberg would like control it. Sam Altman would like to control it. A lot of people would like to issue everyone their eyeball wallet. And I think it's
like
if I was an American government, I would be looking at this problem and say, this is how we like stay in charge here. Instead of these Bitcoiners, we need to have like a digital dollar and we need to have a bank account for every American that we can.
It's like, hey, Taylor, how did you become a trillionaire? I was in the WorldCoin pre-sale.
My eyeballs.
It's like 100 times.
Yeah, I own 1% of WorldCoin as an early investor.
No, that's gonna be A16Z. They're
I know, but is
world.
anything more that's one of the only things to me that seems like more dystopian than like the government controlled version is the corporate controlled version.
Yeah. Well, and so what Aaron said, there's actually another factor that we're not addressing here, which is China. It's their digital currency is very real, very real.
That's the real WorldCoin, and there's no pre-sale. It's just China.
It's happening. So it's not just, is it Sam? Is it Zuck? Is it the Fed or the US government? No, it's probably going to be China.
Yeah.
And hopefully the US will not use China's. I don't think that's actually a threat. What I do think is a threat is that the US government or US people or whatever, the fear of China drives us to do something that's irresponsible because we're so scared of China, right? So for example, before China's stablecoin or CBDC, sorry, before their central currency digital token thing became real, nobody was on board with giving that power to Zuck. However, is that fear and is that reality strong enough today that we would be willing to give it to Zuck so that it's not China? That's, in my opinion, a terrifying position. But hey, now Sam Altman and his eyeballs are here, so maybe we'll be okay.
These are also pretty advanced in the eyeball scanning realm also. I mean, there's like really, really advanced facial recognition technology. So all these things are converging. Like your bank account and your face are like converging data sets right now. Well, I'm not in a good way, but...
And you just throw on your social reputation into your entire financial history, hand it over to Zuck or A16Z, and that is what we are building, guys. That is cryptocurrency in a nutshell.
Very exciting that all this decentralized and open source concepting will be completely co-opted by governments and corporations that'll make it all completely miserable and dystopian forever. So thanks for ending it on a good note, you guys. I appreciate it. Everybody, let's shill some links. MyCrypto.com. Taylor, on Twitter, what's your handle?
Yeah, mycrypto.com, at mycrypto on Twitter. And also, if you guys have a Gitcoin, we have a Gitcoin grant open right now for our Crypto Scam DB, which is our open source database of all the scams in the ecosystem. So definitely check out Gitcoin.
That's amazing.
I gotta check that out. Look for a season 2. I didn't know you had.
Just show ideas. Aaron, they can follow you at Aaron Lammer on Twitter, and they can subscribe to Exit Scam in any podcast app and go to exitscam.show. Check it out. It is freaking fantastic. Anything else to shill there?
No, those are my big ones right now.
Allison, where do people need to go? Inflated Expectations. It's a newsletter. It's a podcast.
Yeah, it's a newsletter. It's a newsletter. It's a podcast.
Does it have a domain
it's on
name?
Twitter. No. Blockworks. You check out Blockworks. Follow Blockworks. Follow Tantra Labs. All the
Allison on Twitter.
Follow me or don't. Honestly,
she'll shill the rest of her stuff there. Thank you to the chat for being with us for a broad-ranging show about exit scams and monetary policy. That's right up my alley. I don't know about anybody else, but this is Ledger only, so suck it up. Deal with it. That's what you got. Go to uponly.tv/Blockfolio. Make your first trade on Blockfolio today. It's freaking better than Coinbase, that's for sure. uponly.tv/Blockfolio. Trade directly from one asset to the other. You can connect your fiat bank, buy the dip, do whatever you need to do there. It's a mobile first and delightful experience. Thanks so much to them for being our partners. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.